A White House official tells Fox News that Honeywell officials told them that they needn't wear masks during that visit. So the president and other dignitaries didn't.
Fox's Kevin Corke. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo criticizing the president and Congress for not providing his state with enough aid in the outbreak. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy responding on Fox's Daily Briefing with Dana Perino.
He has been sent to hospital, a ship. He has been built hospitals in the process. Of all the governors out there to say something is not true, Governor Cuomo is one that I would think want to take those words back with how much we have provided.
House Democrats calling for cash payments to cities and states in the next stimulus package. A Supreme Court justice hospitalized.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg is suffering from an infection brought on by a gallstone. She underwent a non-surgical treatment for the benign gallbladder condition at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. The court says the justice is resting and expects to be hospitalized for a day or two, but she's still planning on being on a conference call Wednesday to take part in the Supreme Court's arguments.
Fox's Jill Nato. Justice Ginsburg is 87. America is listening to Fox News.
Bored at home? Now's the perfect time to get things done. Start that project you've always wanted or finish one. At East West Rental Center, they know you've reached the end of the internet and need to get outside, and they're here to help. Get the right equipment: water blasters, wood chippers, mini backhoes, carpet cleaners, floor buffers, and much more. They're open Monday to Friday from 7 to 5, Saturday from 8 to noon, and closed on Sunday. Call East West Rental Center, 646-1463, or visit them in Upper Dumont.
During this time of great uncertainty, Security Title is working to support our essential banks. We are working for the family who would have been homeless if their purchase was delayed, for the families refinancing to lower mortgage payments, for the contractor who has fronted the cost to build a home, and the surveyors, appraisers, inspectors, and the realtors who cannot make a living without selling a house. With our office doors locked and our essential team members complying with all government protocols, in our own small way, Security Title continues to serve our community.
A judge has ruled New York's decision to scrap next month's presidential primary was unconstitutional.
10 Democratic primary candidates will be restored to the New York primary ballot, and the judge wants the primary to be held in June as previously scheduled. Of course, that's barring an appeal from the governor. Former Vice President Joe Biden essentially locked up the nomination when New York's Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo scrapped the primary after Sanders dropped out of the race. But former candidate Andrew Yang sued, and a judicial appointee of President Barack Obama has now agreed that Cuomo's decision disenfranchised New York voters. Judge Annalisa Torres wrote in her opinion that canceling the primary, quote, deprived pledged delegates of the opportunity to run for a position where they could influence the party platform.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich social distancing at a confirmation hearing Tuesday for the president's choice to be the next director of national intelligence.
DNI nominee John Ratcliffe sat 40 feet from senators in a cavernous hearing room, a bottle of Purell at his side. Senators usually squeeze onto the dais for a hearing, but Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr limited how many senators could sit in the hearing room at once. Senators had to stay in their offices until it was their turn to ask Ratcliffe questions. This is a do-over for Ratcliffe to be the nation's top spy. President Trump tapped the congressman to succeed DNI Dan Coats last summer, but Ratcliffe pulled out after bipartisan questions arose about his qualifications.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. The federal government and the state of Wyoming urging a federal appeals court to reverse a judge's order blocking the first grizzly bear hunt in the lower 48 states in nearly 30 years. The Museum of Fine Arts in Boston agreeing to create a $500,000 diversity fund after black middle school students say they were mistreated on a field trip by a staff member who allegedly told them no food, no drink, no watermelon. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Horizon Properties can empathize with individual property owners during this trying time. The last thing you should worry about is collecting rent or sending a repairman to your property. With their web-hosted property management system, Horizon can reach out to tenants, vendors, and owners alike and maintain the current prohibition requirements. Let Horizon Properties take care of it all. Help flatten the curve by remaining safe at home. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792 or visit horizonpropertiesguam.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
Social distancing math. Tossie is infected with COVID-19. She still goes out because she and her friends think it doesn't affect them. Tossie infects 3 friends. Each one infects 3 more. In 30 days, 244 people are infected, including someone's Nana. Most recover, but Nana dies. Reduce your social contact. If you only infect 1 person, in 30 days, the virus spreads to only 4 people. Stay home, stop the spread, save lives.
Hofady, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thus begins another exciting, elucidating, educational, interesting episode of Tall Tales, the top-rated FM radio talk show in the entire Western Pacific, as determined by the Statistics and Measurements branch of the Tall Tales think tank. Glad to have you on board. After I go through this first, as you were, the Second Amendment, after I pay necessary homage to the Bill of Rights, we go from there straight to Zemi Ikotni. That's the part of the program where I beat up unmercifully on the Daily News because they never run local editorials. I then shift my focus to the Guam Daily Post, who always run local editorials, almost always run really sharp, biting, edgy editorials that cause me to award the coveted Blue Star to the Guam Daily Post. So far, the count is 195 Blue Stars for the Post, 57 for the Daily News. Candid News has gotten 3. If the Daily News doesn't get moving here, Candid's going to pass them. So that's what we do here with Zemi Ikotni. Before I jump into that, I want to give you a little preview of things to come here on Tall Tales. You know, we have some routines. We do Zemi Ikotni, then I go to the card, just like a boxing card. In this round, weighing 190 pounds in the black trunks from Hoboken, New Jersey. Yeah, that sort of thing, you know. And then during that time, we have other features. We have the 7th inning stretch. We have the 7th inning stretch from Wrigley Field in Chicago. We have the Kentucky visiting the Churchill Downs. No Kentucky Derby this month. It's postponed till September. Churchill Downs for the home stretch. We have a big halftime show that's really exciting. Marching bands, cheerleaders, and a barrage of cannon fire at the end. And we've added a special feature to that program called it's promos for a new TV serial called The 19th Floor. Yeah. And these promos are really, if the show is half as good as the promos, it's going to be one heck of a show. So we got a promo scheduled up for right after the big halftime show, right, Real Joe Cruz?
We're working on it, sir. We're working on it.
What, did you get a job with the government of Guam?
No, sir.
What's this we're working How we're working on
We're looking into it, sir.
Yeah, we'll get back to you.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah, so what, are you having a problem?
Well, there's a kink right now in the Intel line, so we're trying to work out the kink and see if we can maintain the flow of information, sir.
Okay, well, we'll try then to do a promo for the 19th floor after the halftime show, right?
I believe so, sir.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, back to Demi Kudney. The history of social distancing. That's what the Daily News is writing about. This is by someone named Mary Ann Cusimano Love, special to USA Today. You want to know what it has to do with our beautiful island of Guam here in the Western Pacific, where America's day begins? You want to know? Not a darn thing. It's got nothing to do with Guam at all. Very typical of the editorials, or the stuff. I'm not even going to dignify them with the E word. The stuff that runs in the Daily News in the opinion page section. What they do is they get boilerplate from USA Today and Gannett News Service, and they run that, and once in a blue moon, not even that often, you'll see an editorial that actually deals with Guam. Notwithstanding all the advice that I give them, telling them that in these days of failing newspapers, that is hard copy newspapers actually made out of paper, not electronic impulses. One thing that local papers can do that you can't get from the internet is to run local editorials. The Post understands that, and the Post is gaining ground fast on the Daily News. The Daily News apparently doesn't get it. Okay, so then we go to the Post. Here's what the Post has to say today. Here's a spoiler. No blue star for the Post today. Kudos for using federal funds for, now they say COVID relief, but of course our regular listeners know that we don't use the term COVID-19 here. I edit it into the more correcter term, which is Wuhan virus. Kudos for using federal funds for Wuhan virus relief. Gov Guam can do more, this time to help the middle class. Governor Lulian Guerrero on Tuesday announced $20 million is being set aside of the $117 million in federal relief funds that the local government received. While an argument can be made that more of that funding should go to help people directly, it's at least a recognition on the part of her administration that the government of Guam cannot simply urge people to apply for federally funded welfare, wait for federally funded unemployment benefits, and stand by for the release of Wuhan virus relief checks, also from Uncle Sam. Something needed to be put in place as a bridge cash aid. Excuse me. Let's make sure that we're maintaining proper physical distance out there. So if I cough, make sure that you're at least 6 feet away from the speaker on your phone. Okay, today's press conference is a breakthrough of sorts. As you were Tuesday's press conference, a breakthrough of sorts. The government now acknowledges it needs to provide assistance that will help people in the interim. The plan is to use $20 million of the $117 million pot to give each person up to a certain income level $300 checks or up to $1,200 per household. This is in addition to the $1,200 for individual taxpayers and $2,400 for couples that the U.S. Treasury Department is funding through a program administered by the Department of Rev Tax. The governor also now plans to set aside $20 million for small businesses whose operations were displaced by Wuhan virus. This, too, is welcome news, especially if this helps small businesses that can't get approved for the federal Paycheck Protection Program. Excuse me, now that there is more clarity on what GovGuam is willing to do. The next concern of our local government should focus on are the middle-class households who are being left behind. The middle-class households. Now, who would that be? Who would be in the middle class on Guam? Teachers? Maybe, huh? Small business owners? I suspect nurses and some of the other allied health professionals are in the middle class. The lowest of GovGuam income earners, several thousand of them making $10,000 or less a year, have received Wuhan virus relief checks from the local government. This next set of relief checks will be for about 18,000 households that are at the 165% or lower of the federal poverty guidelines. But this new threshold again leaves behind households that do have working adults in the family but are now having to do without paychecks because of furloughs or layoffs. These also happen to be the same households who don't qualify for food stamps, public housing, or Section 8 rent vouchers. Now, that's kind of, whether that's middle class or in the middle, I'm not so sure, but you got one group of folks here on the island. Let's refer to them as the Manakilu, folks that have got, that have plenty of money. Some of the professional people, doctors, some of the lawyers, a lot of government of Guam officials, especially directors. People like that, who I would think we would say are in the higher class. And then we have the folks on the other extreme that get Section 8 housing, food stamps, welfare, all of the other things that come from the government. And then there's a group in the middle that doesn't fit into either one of those categories. And these would happen to be the same households that don't qualify for food stamps, public housing, or Section 8 rent vouchers. Governor, you're on to something. That's what the Post is saying. Governor, you're on to something, but please do more. Do hear the middle class. They're the ones who aren't able to get help from pre-existing safety nets. They happen to be some of our most hard-working Guamanians, but they're all left behind. Real Joe Cruz, did you ever notice that no matter who it is we're talking about, they always have tremendous work ethics?
Yes, sir.
I've heard our governor on more than one occasion thank our hard-working government of Guam employees.
Yes, sir.
And since the Wuhan virus came along, we've all been really grateful for those hard-working people in the private sector, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone say, the folks over at XYZ are a bunch of lazy bums. They have to stand in line backwards in order to get their paychecks. I never hear that. We must have the hardest working 160,000 people in the world, because every single one of them are hard working, fill in the blanks. Right, Real Joe Cruz? Have you noticed that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, especially when you want to talk about them. Real Joe Cruz, for me, it's a real pleasure to be sitting here behind this microphone doing Tall Tales every day of the week, reaching out to my international radio listening audience. And I know, though, it's not just me. I really want to thank all of the hard-working people here at the Point. Even you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the middle class, they happen to be some of our most hard-working Guamanians. Wow. If everybody is a hard worker, then what's the distinction? If everybody works hard at the very same level, then haven't we kind of voided the whole concept of hard working if everyone is a hard worker?
It's true, sir.
Yeah.
I don't work hard, sir. I hardly work.
Yeah. No comment on that one, Real Joe Cruz. Until after 6 p.m., after 1800, I'll open up on that one. Sorry, Guam Post, no Blue Star today. Even though I'm not going to give the Guam Daily Post the Blue Star today, Real Joe Cruz, I will say this. I want to compliment all of the really hard-working people that put that paper out every day. They are some of the hardest workers on the island. Okay, so from there we go to the card. And actually, I've got the same card as I had yesterday because we got so involved with yesterday's topics that I never even got a chance to go to the card. So, okay, here it is. I've finished Zemi Kotny, and it's time for, drum roll. It's time for Martinez. Good afternoon, Martinez.
Good afternoon, Senator. Senator, about 12 days ago or so, you mentioned constituent work.
Uh-huh.
Explain what you mean about that for a senator doing constituent work.
Okay, I'll give you an example, and I think we can expand outward from there. Senator, I don't know what's going on. Every time they come out and read my water bill, or water meter, they tell me they can't read it, and then they charge me 4 times as much as they charged me last year for this month. What in the heck's going on? You know, I can't afford to pay all these water bills. Can you help me? Well, let me see what I can do to help you out, Mr. XYZ. That would be constituent work, Mark.
And then what does the senator do to help out XYZ?
Well, he calls somebody over at the waterworks, and he says, Mr. XYZ was in my office this morning, and he was complaining about his water bill, et cetera, et cetera. Is there anything you can tell me about that?
Do you actually think a senator should do that?
No, I don't.
Trying to do the job of the executive branch?
I don't think a senator should do that. I will say this, that almost every senator does, and conventional wisdom holds that the strength of your ability to do constituent work has a lot to do with whether or not you're reelected.
It really does, huh?
Mm-hmm. That's what people, that's that 1972 playbook again, but no, I don't think that's what senators should be doing, but it's a fact. It happens.
What would happen if a senator said, well, that would be doing the job of the executive branch. This isn't our job. But if you try everything and you can't get anything done, then when there's a hearing on this area or even on their oversight of their budget, come down and testify or not, give me permission to lose your name and I'll bring it up. What would the constituents think if the senator did that?
Well, what kind of senator is this? You know, I went down there to see him about my water bill. He didn't want to help me. All he wanted to do was talk about the next public hearing.
So you think senators should continue to play the ball game?
No, I don't. I don't think it's a good practice. I don't. But
okay, just wanted to get your ideas. Because I know if you have a part-time legislature, then there'll be a lot less of that happening, right?
There would be much less of that and much more concentration on the real business of a legislature, which is appropriating money, passing bills, and passing budgets.
Okay. Thanks for the insight, Senator.
Okay, Martinez. Thanks for calling. Okay, and then I've got Vince. This is a new Vince, I believe, right?
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Well, if he's a long-time listener, he'll be a very informed caller. Good afternoon, Vince.
Good afternoon. I'm a new and improved Vince. I'm trying my best not to be so negative as we go into week 4 of this coronavirus pandemic. So yes, I'm long-time listener, first-time caller.
Okay, Vince.
Although. Yeah, this is actually Dr. Vince Sakimoto as well. I guess should be full disclosure.
It's a good voice disguise you got there, Vince. I didn't recognize you. Well, I didn't recognize your voice there. Long-time listener, first-time caller. A good show, Vince.
Oh, you would have got me out because I can't help myself. I only called this show because I know a lot of important people are listening, and when we want things done, we have to go to the fourth branch of government, and sometimes it just let as many people as possible know that there's some important things afoot. As we've seen in these last couple of days, it's been busy in Adaloop, and I guess they're worried about many things. I think there might have been a missed opportunity to actually let people know that there's good news about the coronavirus. We've gone quite a number of weeks now. I would want to say at least 21 days where the amount of virus infections has definitely been decreasing. It's stayed steady at almost zero. The number of new cases is going down, and the number of people recovering is going up. I know people notice this, but it does seem like the doom and gloom is still hanging around.
Did that trend continue even after the governor took down the checkpoints out on the highways, Vince?
Well, at the same time she did that, unfortunately, they also increased the number of testing. So we've actually almost tripled the amount of tests we do. So we're still picking up positives, which I think is exactly what we want to do. But when they keep talking about the numerator and the denominator, I think our percentages of positives, meaning active disease, is definitely trending towards like there's just not a whole lot of spread in the community. We're finding the ones that are there, but I would argue that the purpose of this call is just to remind people that the lockdown has worked, that all the sacrifices that people are making is more than likely saving lives because very few people now are sick enough to die. And as far as I can tell, no one's died of coronavirus in the last several weeks, and we hope that none will. But this disease will kill people. There's really, unfortunately, no other way around it. It's a deadly disease. It's killing people every day in other places. We're very, very lucky. And this morning we had a very important conference with doctors in Taiwan. It was a teleconference that the governors of Saipan and Guam were a part of in an attempt to try to see if we could get some help from that island nation, which is very much like ours in terms of at least weather and the fact that they're isolated. But the big difference between them and us is they're 81 miles away from China, not necessarily Wuhan, but there's definitely 81 miles away from getting invaded by a bunch of coronavirus. And they've managed to keep their disease under control and very few people dying. And I think important for many of your listeners, they've kept their schools open. They've kept their businesses open. They've kept, I believe, their churches open to some degree more than ours. And I think that's where we want to head. We want to go in the direction of reopening our society and trying to make the best out of a bad situation, but which I think unfortunately has been really, really bad because of the social isolation and the lockdown being as extreme as it is. But it's paid dividends. I think we're on a much better footing. I think the news is, and I want to, I guess, maybe speak for the governor just a little bit, is we had to go this extreme to make sure we could do it and that, in fact, the disease could be controlled. We need to be strict about our understanding of the fact that the disease is real and it will kill people. And I know some people are willing to accept death, but, everybody's willing to accept death until it's happening to them. Everybody's, ready for a fight until they get punched in the face. So I think we're going to side on the side of error because most people really don't want to die, and they don't want to die sucking gas or sucking for air. It's a painful way to die, this coronavirus. Again, the point of this call is that it looks like we're starting the delocking of Guam. We're opening up our society. And one of the things that has happened in the last 24 hours that you, sir, are probably not aware of, and you're the education doctor, or you're one of the education doctors. Were you not, sir, a professor of education or teacher or director of education at one point in your lifetime?
I held the highest position in the Department of Education. It's the one called teacher.
Yes, there we go. So I'm talking to the right guy, the education doctor. And you'll be happy to know that there's some efforts in the schools, in the public schools, to get ready, for the next school year. So they're trying to clean up. They're trying to, I guess, do whatever it is you do in May at the end of the school year to make sure your schools are going to be ready for next school year. And so there have been some people called in as volunteers to work in the schools. Not too many, and you probably haven't heard about this, so don't worry, it's not in a bulletin. And the only point about it is apparently the people that actually show up when you ask for volunteers are folks that if they ask their doctors if they should go in, the answer would be not yet. And people shouldn't take this the wrong way. If you're in a higher age group, not necessarily old, if you're in a higher age group where the chances of you getting sick from coronavirus might increase your chance of dying, you shouldn't be the first one to go back into a work environment where there's contact with others. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Meanwhile, we have a whole bunch of other people that are in younger age groups that when you ask for volunteers, they're absolutely the last people to volunteer. I mean, I'm just doing that categorically, and I'll take the criticism for it because that's how I roll. But it really does no good to bring in a bunch of 60-year-olds or 50-year-olds to volunteer to help get anything ready when there's a bunch of 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds sitting at home getting paid to do nothing. And we got a lot of those in the government of Guam. So before we start rolling out this opening of the government of Guam, I think the younger folks need to be educated that they're the first ones that are going to go back to work, and let the doctors help decide how quickly we're going to bring the higher risk age groups back into the front line. That's my ask on this show today.
Well, very good. I'm glad I could assist you in getting the message out, Doc. Very good. Glad that you called. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Name is Vince. Yeah. He's operating from deep cover. All right, let's take a break, Real Joe Cruz.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, here we are, back again. Tall Tales, couple of phone calls, and I'm going to pick up the card now. And as I was explaining, this is the same card I had yesterday. The calls and the talk was so intriguing and so interesting, I never even got to do the first item on the card. I did an intro for it and never got into it. So this is what I got on the card. I've got Janela, the Button Man, versus the media. I've got Shelton versus the 14. I've got Lou versus decolonization. Commissar DeNorcy versus the First Amendment with a little forgery thrown in. Romeo versus the media, which I think maybe we're doing a little bit better on the problem that Romeo points out, but it's still a problem. Okay, so Janela the Button Man. I explained yesterday that the Button Man is gangster slang for someone who kind of remains in the background but takes out the enemies of the Don, right? Now that's not Janela. She's not a button. She's not that kind of button man, and she's not even a man. Although nowadays I don't think that's really very important. Whether a person is a man or a woman is not so important. It's what they want you to, what they want you to call them that's important. So, I guess I'm safe in thinking that Janela's not a man. She at least hasn't come along and said, I'm not a man. But the Janela the button man versus the media. And this goes back to the mute button. I've got a post here. The director of the mute button had a short career. Yeah, that's one of those occupations, you know, like running a video rental store. One of those careers that's on its way out. There isn't going to be much demand for button man around here anymore. So this is a couple days old article. Adelup Policy Director Carlo Branch says he's responsible for the muting of the media at last Thursday's governor's press conference. Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio told KOAM's interactive talk show called Containing Wuhan Virus that he expected Branch and Adelup Communications Director Janela Carrera to apologize to the people of Guam and the media. I actually wanted to say to you, Chris, and this is, I actually wanted to say to you, Chris, I think three groups of people are owed an apology, Branch said. First and foremost is the reporters that participated in the press conference, the fact that I gave an instruction which resulted with them being cut off, of them feeling like their rights under the First Amendment were not respected. It's completely my fault, Branch said. I should have given better instruction, and I'm responsible for that. You know, the people of Guam deserve an apology because we can't constantly point to examples in our history of people who work for the government and think they shouldn't be subjected to scrutiny, and I never wanted to be one of those people. That's wrong. Branch added, third, I extended my personal apology to the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, and the Lieutenant Governor had the strength and moral fortitude to apologize to the people of Guam on the radio this morning, the moment he was asked the question. He's going to get in trouble for that. The fact that I had to wait for reporters to ask me the question shows that I'm not as brave or forthright as he is. Those who serve the governor and lieutenant governor have to serve them well. And that day was not one of my better days. This is all Carlo Branch. And here's the last couple sentences in this article. An apology by Carrera was not issued. Also, no apology from Governor Lulian Guerrero has been received as yet. So the lieutenant governor comes out and says, those two nincompoops have to apologize to the people of Guam for what they did during that press conference. Janela kept pushing the button and muting the calls, and then she would tell people who asked questions, oh, that's not the subject of discussion today. You can't ask that question. And then didn't you have an experience with a muting yesterday, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, I did, sir.
With your microphone?
Yes, I did. Still under investigation.
Yeah. I don't think Janela was in here yesterday, was she?
No, she wasn't. But it's not an apology that didn't come, sir. It's what she didn't say.
It's what she didn't say.
Yeah.
That's true. I wonder, did anybody see her climbing up the telephone pole outside? No, never mind. Yeah. Yeah, so it's not what Janela said, it's what she didn't say. We've been through that one before. Oh, here's a fourth. Carlos said three groups of people, and then fourth, all the folks over there at Tall Tales who have had so much trouble with government officials and sunshine law requests that I don't need to add to that list, Branch said. Yeah. So winding this up, an apology by Carrera was not issued. Also, no apology from Governor Leon Guerrero has been received as of yet. Now, the next chapter. This is the KUAM News. Governor issues apology for media censoring, issues transparency order for spending. It was the first press conference held since Thursday when members of the island's media were muted, censored from asking questions outside the governor's recovery plan. Today at Adelup, transparency was high on the briefing agenda. Transparency this time, huh? On the briefing agenda, following yesterday's apologies from Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio and the administration's Chief Policy Director, Carlo Branch, for censoring. Governor Leon Guerrero issued a transparency plan and also officially apologized. So now let's see. We've got the governor, we've got the lieutenant governor, we've got Carlo Branch. Anybody missing here, Real Joe Cruz?
Tony?
No, Tony was gone by that time, I think. Isn't there one person missing from that list?
I'm not sure, sir.
Maybe the button man.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. So we got the governor, the lieutenant governor, Carlo Branch, and is there a name missing there?
Janella?
Janella, yeah. All right. Executive Order 2020-13 for immediate steps in increasing our administrative transparency with the use of federal funds, the governor announced. She signed off on that order, which includes having a third-party review on the use of federal funds for government expenditures in response to the pandemic. Additionally, any response by an executive branch agency on document requests are to be submitted to the Attorney General's office and made public on the OAG website. All line agencies will compile responses provided relative to this disaster since the declaration of the public health emergency on March 14 and submit them to the Attorney General's office. The governor said this will allow every citizen the opportunity to regularly review documents secured under FOIA and our responses to them. This need for transparency grew after last week the government attempted to censor the media and ultimately shut down multiple reporters' questions raised on spending and financial assistance. Both the lieutenant governor and the chief policy advisor apologized to KOAM, to the people of Guam, with Branch taking responsibility for directing the censorship. Today, KOAM asked the governor if she supported that directive. And here's a quote. "So let me say that I have great respect for my Director of Communications and Policy for being very forthright in apologizing. I also have great respect for the Lieutenant Governor for being forthright in apologizing," the governor said. Is there a name missing here, Real Joe Cruz?
Janella?
Yeah. The fact that it was muted because I know the guidelines were certain guidelines and it wasn't being followed, and that's what it said. And that's what it is, and people have so. I'm going to be together with great respect, honesty, and truth. Yes, that's quite a sentence. I apologize for the mistake that happened. People make mistakes. Government makes mistakes. And I am not ashamed to say we made a mistake, so I apologize. This is the governor of Guam. However, not following suit and staying mute on the matter is Communications Director Janella Carrera. Janella was mute. So I can just see her. Here, this is how it looks. She opens her mouth and starts to talk, and she pushes the mute button, and no sound comes out. However, not following suit and staying mute on the matter is Communications Director Janella Carrera. Carrera was present during today's live Zoom press briefing, announcing reporters are now able to control the muting and unmuting of their mics. Additionally, questions were unlimited, but I guess they can't control the muting on Janella's mouth. So let me take roll again. So we had this incident at a press conference. Reporters were cut off and shut down. Their mics were muted out. And we had some apologies. Carlo Branch apologized. The lieutenant governor said they ought to apologize. He apologized. The governor apologized. Everybody apologized except for who, Real Joe Cruz?
Janella?
Yeah. And that's why this one is labeled Janella the Button Man versus the media. Now, do you know where Janella worked before she came to work for the governor's office, Real Joe Cruz?
McDonald's?
Yeah, she was the one that had the microphone and did the drive-through orders.
I think she used to work for Pacific News Center.
No, it was McDonald's.
It was.
Yeah, so when people drive through and can I take your order, please? And they ordered something she didn't like the sound of, she'd mute their mic.
Mute them at the intercom?
Yeah, she'd mute the mic. I don't know how much money that cost McDonald's. Yeah. Now, she worked for... Yeah, that was a little sarcasm there. She worked for PNC. She was the news director over at PNC. So she was a reporter. She's done some interviews herself. She reported the news on TV. Very interesting turnabout. I got to stifle this here. Okay, so that's the first item on the card today. Then we go from there to Shelton versus the 14. This deals with Bill 333, which is one of the sloppiest pieces of legislative work I have ever seen, and I've seen a few. But there was one saving grace to this bill. It's Section 7. Which says, Imagalahi, as it were, like Imagahagan Wuhan shall keep a full account of all Wuhan virus expenses incurred by Imagahaga, funded with either local or federal funds, and shall report such to Legislatura Wuhan within 20 days of the close of each calendar month. Report shall include a clear description of the source of funds, such as transferred funds, lapse funds, local appropriations, federal funds, or any other discernible fund type. So it's not very good draftsmanship. It's not very clear draftsmanship. But the worst thing about, or the most easily noticed thing about this bill is it's not codified. It will not fit in the Guam Code annotated. It's Section 1, Section 2, all the way down to Section 9, which is, of course, the severability clause. So no one will be able to find these provisions of law unless he happens to know the public law number. So it'll be a matter, and all of the tools that lawyers use to search out statutes, etc., will not work. So we're back to oral tradition. So if you want to know anything about temporary employees and the Wuhan virus, you'll have to know what public law to look at, because the search feature, the compiler search feature won't work. And this bill will not find its way into the Guam Code annotated chapters, section numbers, and all of those things. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and I'll be right back here to finish up with this one and go on to the big halftime show. And we hope, we don't know, but we got our fingers crossed for the next episode of The 19th Floor.
Rärnim. Paraus utsia rerewasemwer COVID-19 ika coronavirus. Förriwisom omkosap nafeten. Kope betsökkyn, kope riveriböts, me kope wannefits. Toa seria ravas pura pekkökyro, tsöydaan isemmun. Esa porkotsu ike tsuffegen. Esa porkapong, esa porfarropats ike kareffigen giri arabas. Kiitsi ponnautin norim. Arapara betsökkyder iris. Anna fava sösö, am teiso, me ammoge kioboge viennim. Paryn faitabin. Arapara rivöts, kopo kykyo vattaparravas. Toru boom murira warto sirireri veirisin. Kosa vattapa vesom, potum me avum. Toru fitsi boom meia kiattaporajan. Ei paraus, aetto seri, atski office manielu, Macquarie Resource Center, Mekwesteserin, Choice Broadcasting.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
So here we are again, back on Tall Tales. We got about 8 minutes till that big halftime show, and I look at my stack VIP, and who do I see? It's none other than Another Joe. What a surprise, Another Joe. Good afternoon, Another Joe.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bob?
Yeah.
I was listening to at first you said that the governor had not, or someone said that she had not apologized, and then I think you corrected that.
Well, I was reading two news stories, and in the Carlo Branch news story, where the lieutenant governor apologized, and he told Carlo he should apologize. The next day, Carlo apologized, and the news story said, although the lieutenant governor had apologized and Carlo had apologized, two people had not. Two people, I suppose, of equal importance, the governor and Janella. And then the next day, the governor apologized.
Oh, so everyone's more or less apologized now. I'm glad to hear that it's coming along and people are communicating better. But I have a sense that people want it to go a little bit faster. So this Sunday, is it listening to the mass sitting in the cars, or what was it that the Archbishop said was going to happen this Sunday?
This Sunday, there will be mass celebrated at many of the churches. People will drive into the parking lot in their cars. I don't know if there'll be speakers or how the mass will be broadcast. And Eucharistic ministers will visit each car with the host so that the faithful can take communion.
That's great, Bob. And hopefully it'll get more relaxed, and people will be back to shopping in the stores with masks and social distances. Okay, Bob, I'll just keep listening. Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, Another Joe. Glad you called in. Maria Fagoodgood comes up here with a really good comment. It's kind of like this hard-working thing, you know. Here's what Maria Fagoodgood says. No, it was not a mistake. It was deliberate, but now they have to try and save face because of their stupidity, so they throw around the old, quote, mistake term. Yes, we all make mistakes. Like I picked up Mayo instead of Miracle Whip. What they didn't want, what they did wasn't a mistake. They wanted to shut the media up, period. And I think that's a good point. I hear that all the time. You know, the fake apology. Well, you know, I know you feel bad. I'm sorry you feel bad. And if I did anything to offend you, I'm really sorry. The word "if" never fits into an apology. Or, yeah, you know, we made a mistake there, and you know, I'm really sorry, but after all, you know, everybody makes mistakes sometimes, and we're only human, and I'm sorry I made that mistake. And Maria Fagan said, no, it was not a mistake. It was deliberate. And now they have to try to save face because of their stupidity, so they throw around the old, quote, mistake term. Yes, we all make mistakes. Like I picked up mayo instead of Miracle Whip. What they did wasn't a mistake. They wanted to shut up the media. Yeah, and it just didn't work out very well for them. Yeah, good call, Maria Fagan. Good call. We got some, you know, I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said you can fool all of the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all the time. And were he to be around nowadays, he'd add to that, and you can't fool Tall Tales listeners for even 10 seconds because they're too much into things. They're too engaged. They know too much about what's going on, and they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Hooray for Maria Fagan. Okay, so okay, so I was dealing here with Bill 333. It's not codified, you know. So if it's not codified, no one will ever be able to find it. It'll be as easy for lawyers to find as my grandmother's recipe for oatmeal cookies. Unless you know about it, unless you know the public law number, and unless you've memorized the contents of it, you'll never be able to find it. If it's that important, why couldn't Therese have... Therese is a lawyer. She used to be... You know what Therese used to do before she was a senator, Real Joe Cruz? Not McDonald's. That was Janella.
No, she doesn't. She didn't. She was an attorney, I believe.
She was legislative counsel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was the legislature's very own lawyer. So you would assume that she knows how to draft a bill. And you'd assume that she understands the importance of whatever you do has to be codified so that it could be located. But I don't know. Maybe when they were deciding what to put into this bill, someone said, shouldn't we codify this, Therese? And you know what Therese's answer was? I pass. Therese is one of the three quarterbacks.
Yeah, she's got an arm.
Yeah, she's a very accurate arm. Yeah. Yeah, so I think when she let go of this one, it looked like a Hail Mary pass. But 14 receivers caught it, and the only one that fumbled the ball was Senator Amanda Shelton, who voted against it. But she had a really good reason. I just happened to be watching the session at that time, and it was all about trust. Well, I'll pick this up after the next promo for the 19th floor. So I'll see you then.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Big change coming to the task force. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Daily briefings already scaled back. The federal coronavirus task force will be ending soon.
The president said a team led by Vice President Mike Pence will likely be ending its work within the month, but in favor of the next step.
We're now looking at a little bit of a different form, and that form is safety and opening, and we'll have a different group probably set up for that.
President Trump was also asked, in whatever form that takes, will doctors Deborah Birx and Anthony Fauci be involved? He said yes, their knowledge will be needed because the fight is still not over.
Fox's Gernal Scott. The U.S. has now surpassed 1.2 million confirmed coronavirus infections, and more than 71,000 deaths have been attributed to the outbreak. Researchers say they've created an antibody that neutralizes the coronavirus at the cell level, offering the potential for prevention and treatment. Study published in the scientific journal Nature Communications notes the antibody created in a lab environment is able to inhibit the spike protein found in the virus that causes COVID-19 as well as SARS. The antibody has previously been used in cancer drugs. A big cruise line company now being sued over the coronavirus death of an employee.
The family of Royal Caribbean employee Puji Yoko says the company failed to protect its workers despite cruise ships turning into hotbeds for the coronavirus back in February and March. The 27-year-old passed away after working as a housekeeper on the Symphony of the Seas. The lawsuit filed in Miami accuses Royal Caribbean of failing to follow basic safety precautions even after the U.S. government issued a no-sail order. The cruise company not commenting on pending litigation.
Fox's Tom Graham. Asian stocks closing Wednesday higher. America is listening to Fox News.
Horizon Properties can empathize with individual property owners during this trying time. The last thing you should worry about is collecting rent or sending a repairman to your property. With their web-hosted property management system, Horizon can reach out to tenants, vendors, and owners alike and maintain the current prohibition requirements. Let Horizon Properties take care of it all. Help flatten the curve by remaining safe at home. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792 or visit horizonpropertiesguam.com. Horizon Properties, always there for you.
Bored at home? Now's the perfect time to get things done. Start that project you've always wanted or finish one. At East West Rental Center, they know you've reached the end of the internet and need to get outside, and they're here to help. Get the right equipment: water blasters, wood chippers, mini backhoes, carpet cleaners, floor buffers, and much more. They're open Monday to Friday from 7 to 5, Saturday from 8 to noon, and closed on Sunday. Call East West Rental Center, 646-1463, or visit them in Upper Dumont.
In many states, you still can't get your hair cut, your nails done, or eat in a restaurant. But a woman who rescues victims of sex trafficking says prostitution is flourishing.
Andy Berger, founder of Beulah's Place, a refuge for sex trafficking victims, says police are focused elsewhere during the pandemic and sexual predators are in plain sight. Berger says their victims are particularly vulnerable when it comes to the coronavirus.
Right now with the virus, they could be carriers. They won't even know if they're infected. They're not living in sanitary conditions. And honestly, they're not going to be able to walk into urgent care and say, hey, can you help me? I don't feel well.
Berger is urging us to report any suspicious activity between adults and children and teens to the police. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
The U.S. Supreme Court will hear more oral arguments this morning by telephone because of the virus outbreak. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg will call in from her hospital bed. She's being treated for a gallbladder infection. 2 U.S. citizens being held in Venezuela accused of being mercenaries trying to topple the country's disputed president Nicolas Maduro.
Multiple officials, including the president himself, shot down the idea that the U.S. government had anything to do with this plot.
We just heard about it. But whatever it is, we'll let you know. But it has nothing to do with our government.
Maduro is accusing 2 former Green Berets of playing Rambo in a failed incursion to remove him from office. Venezuelan officials claim 6 attackers were killed in a pair of attempted beach landings, and state TV showed security forces arresting 13 others, including the 2 Americans who have been identified as Luke Denman and Aaron Berry. Another former Green Beret, Jordan Goudreau, claims he orchestrated the entire botched mission from Colombia, working with former Venezuelan soldiers who defected on his own and without any government support.
Fox's Garrett Tenney reports the operation may have been infiltrated by soldiers still loyal to Maduro. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers but branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
During this time of great uncertainty, Security Title is working to support our essential banks. We are working for the family who would have been homeless if their purchase was delayed, for the families refinancing to lower mortgage payments, for the contractor who has fronted the cost to build a home, and the surveyors, appraisers, inspectors, and the realtors who cannot make a living without selling a house. With our office doors locked and our essential team members complying with all government protocols, in our own small way, Security Title continues to serve our community.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, another big halftime show at Tall Tales just recently concluded with that barrage of cannon fire. Oh, it's so inspiring. You know, it just makes me wish that this was just the first 5 minutes of Tall Tales instead of the halftime. But here we are, second half of Tall Tales. And before I proceed, I notice, Real Joe Cruz, we have an electronics problem here. Let's see if we can diagnose this. Romeo Carlos posts and says, I'm not hearing my audio. Now, when we have electronic devices that don't emit any sound, what is the usual primary diagnosis there?
For Romeo, probably because his internet connection.
No, that's not.
Maybe he got muted.
Yeah. So what? When you're not getting any sound out of your electronic device, what is the first thing you should check?
Check the volume.
No. Your proximity to Janela.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Janela may have mooted him out.
He's on the blacklist.
Yeah. Yeah, well, anyhow, so I guess he got it fixed. Maybe Janela went away or something like that.
It's possible.
Yeah. So, okay, so the halftime show is over. We're in the second half of Tall Tales. Now it's time for another promo for that really exciting new TV serial airing on TTTV called The 19th Floor. So go for it, Real Joe Cruz.
Well, I've just got a disturbing message through the Intel line, sir.
Oh?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It says, try as we might, we have been unable to establish contact with the 19th floor. All the resources of the Tall Tales Technical Operations Shop have been employed, but even the existence of the 19th floor can't be verified. While we are unable to determine the existence of the 19th, there have been expressions of interest from astrophysicists and numerologists. The astrophysicists hypothesized the existence of something they thought was impossible, a terrestrial black hole.
A black hole right here on Earth.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Well, the numerologists who were born in the last century, 1999 or earlier, they draw conclusions from Guam has 19 villages. Counterintelligence has 19 letters. COVID-19. 10 GCA chapter 19. And, of course, the 19th floor. A realm of sight and sound.
The 19th floor. Wow. It must be something involved with all those 19s and the terrestrial black hole.
Who knows, sir? Sometimes when things happen that shouldn't happen, sometimes they get completely scrubbed out of existence.
Yeah. Well, wow. So I guess no second episode of the 19th floor then.
Until further notice, sir. We're still digging. We don't quit.
You keep working, but right now we can't even verify the existence of the 19th floor.
This is true, sir. Who knows? The whole building might just be disappeared by tomorrow, and we'll be like, "What happened to it?"
I wonder if I wonder if the government would still have to pay the rent.
Oh,
probably. I think so. Yeah.
You're
Since
right.
there's no contract or anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've got Shelton versus the 14 here, and wow, it's really a bad bill. However, as I said, Section 7, the transparency part, kind of is it kind of makes the whole thing worthwhile. And the bill passed the legislature 15-0, unanimous. But when it came, the governor vetoed, and when it came back for an override, 14 senators went with the override and one didn't. Now, it's not uncommon for senators who voted for a bill to not go along with an override of their own governor's veto. That happens from time to time. And it's a form of political cover. You know, the bill comes along, it seems to be popular. A senator votes for it, the governor vetoes it. The senator kind of blends into the override crowd and votes against the override. And he kind of has it both ways. Later on he can say, well, you know, I voted for that bill, but gosh darn, the governor vetoed it, so you can't blame me. Or somebody else said, boy, I'm sure glad that bill didn't pass. Yeah, I guess you're glad I didn't go along with the override then, right? So it kind of ties into the game. Now, interesting here, and I hope this worked out for Therese, because no one passed when it came time for the roll call vote on this bill. Now, there are sound apolitical reasons for not going along with an override. You could have a situation where a senator votes in favor of a bill, and there are different subjects. The bills address different problems. You know, like you have bills that address the public in general. Like the criminal law tells you what you can do and what you can't do. There are bills that just address the operation of the government. Should we create a new department? Should we abolish an apartment? There are some bills that deal with revenue raising and almost nothing else. So you could consider that if the legislature passes a bill that deals with the operation of the government, and the governor's veto message is very persuasive. The governor, after all, is in charge of the executive branch. And his veto message, I screwed up here, Real Joe Cruz. If the governor's veto message is very clear and they lay out how the bill would make it difficult for the executive branch to operate, and an effective and efficient manner. And you're a senator and you read that and you say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't want that bill to become law. So although I voted for the bill in the first place, I am not going to go with the override. Now, is that what Senator Amanda Shelton did? Not even close. I'm not sure why Amanda Shelton did not go along with the override, even though I listened to what she said. And what she said was all about trust, that we have to be able to trust the governor. And this bill doesn't do it, and we can't do it with a bill, and on and on and on. And she voted against it. She voted against the override. 14 others went for it. I thought it was pretty interesting in the beginning when two Democrats, Terlahi and Sabina Flores, introduced the bill, and then it went down 15-0. You know, we had been pursuing the theory that the governor had pretty good control over the legislature. They tell them when they could meet, when they couldn't meet, telling them that they could have virtual sessions, etc. So when the bill went down 15-0, that was a little bit surprising, and it suggests that maybe the tight relationship between the governor and the legislature is now over. And let's hope so, because you'll recall, your longtime listeners, we had a caller here a little earlier, a long-time listener, first-time caller. Name is Vince. Yeah, if you're a long-time listener, you'll remember that there is a device called Tijeras Taggerty that says the legislature to operate properly needs two sharp blades opposed to one another, cutting against each other. And the same would be true of the governor. So when the governor and the legislature get too cozy, the public is not well served. Okay, Jesse, tell me what's on your mind this afternoon.
Oh, yeah, okay. I just wanted to actually get your thoughts on the trust thing about the governor, you know, and Amanda's whole thing about trust, right? You know, what happens in the sense of, if the governor right when she says there's already laws in place that the guidelines, how the money has to be spent and all that, and you know, I know how you are on you know, like basically doubling up on a law that's already there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the case here? And then
no, it's not, Jesse, because the governor said it's federal money, and there are already federal guidelines and reporting requirements and et cetera. So that's enough. We don't need to have the local stuff. Now,
right.
The senators, you know, the governor has not established a good record for transparency. So the senators, I suspect, are saying, no, we got to have our own, because you haven't been transparent up till now. And they haven't mentioned this, but, you know, Michael San Nicolas, our delegate to Washington, in order to get information out of the local government, had to serve them with a FOIA request. So, no, I don't think that is a wasteful duplication, Jesse. Go on.
Okay, well, you know, I'm just, and then on to how many, and then who makes the law then for if the senators aren't being transparent themselves, you know, or aren't being as transparent as they should be. And then, you know, this just goes to show that if they need this from the governor, then they might as well go with the recall, because you're basically saying that you can't trust what the governor is saying. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just.
Well, let me jump in here for a second. I don't think it's so much Real Joe Cruz. I don't think they're so concerned with what it is that the governor is saying. What are they concerned about, Real Joe Cruz?
What they're not saying.
What the governor's not saying. Yeah, they're saying that she is not giving them the information that they need.
What do they need though? Because they're like you said, they're there to make laws and make sure that, you know. And then again, this governor, if they can't even work with her to that very level, then it sounds like they need to do a recall and step up to the plate and call for one, because they're basically making it seem like the governor is not transparent enough and not being open, and basically leaving room for corruption. I mean, that's what that's what they're kind of leading to without saying it.
You know, I think that's right. I think you're right, Jesse, and that's the reason that we have those who champion transparency as perhaps the greatest mechanism to bring about fair, honest, and efficient government. And so far, Governor Leon Guerrero has not been doing that.
She's definitely not getting the blue star on transparency, but, you know, I mean, if there's no transparency with our governor, I mean, you're basically saying that she's a crook, or she's going to make all these frivolous spending and all these things. And if I was in her position, I would be like, man, that's kind of insulting. Like, you guys think I'm some kind of crook, or I'm going to misspend these funds? I already have the federal guidelines. My team is doing what they can to, you know what I'm saying? So I just don't know how this is going to help anybody with what's going on Guam. I mean, if you want to bring it back to Inaf and Malik, and let the people decide when the time comes that the governor was not being transparent. And my only gripe with this is that who makes a law for these senators that they don't even allow comments on their sessions, you know, on YouTube, and yet they're talking about transparency. They don't even do. They could do live meetings. They could do live meetings with people who come into their office. They could put a camera there and let us listen to what they're talking about with their constituents. You know, if they want to go this whole transparency thing, you know, let's be transparent. Let's open everything up. You know, I mean,
I got your point, Jesse. Let me get in here again now. So what you're alluding to is the argumentum et tu quoque, which is a Latin term that means, oh yeah, but you do it too. But but that is not a defense. If it's the old playground, two wrongs don't make a right. So if everything you say about the legislature is true, that doesn't excuse the governor. But
of course it doesn't. Yeah.
Let me continue, Jesse. Okay, that doesn't excuse the governor. And I think people have an expectation that when all of this federal money comes in, she should be very open. Now, you said if you were the governor, you'd think, well, that's insulting. Well, one of the things that is necessary if you're going to be in elected politics, you got to have a really thick skin. That's just part of the game. And you can expect that no matter what you do, you're going to be criticized from every corner. And
right.
That's just part of the way the system operates. But the governor has brought it upon herself, and I've mentioned this a million times on Tall Tales. The first thing she did, the first emergency measure that she introduced was to gut the open government law, one half of our statutory popular transparency, and that's the first thing she did. So from then on, you know, everybody, certainly I'm going to be very suspicious of everything that she does. And I can't say that I blame the legislature. Now, as far as the legislature is concerned, they're not paragons of virtue either. But I have found that when you serve a freedom, as you were a FOIA demand on them, they're good. This administration is the worst that I've ever dealt with as far as complying with FOIA demands. So they're not transparent.
Right. Yeah. So on my take, I'm not trying to I'm not in defense of the governor or whatever. I'm just trying to see this whole thing, and it just it just seems like, I mean, might as well shoot for the recall, because I mean, she's obviously if now she's saying that I don't know what her reason was why she gutted the open government law, and obviously it's because for I don't know what reason she has, or I don't even know if anybody asked her that, but yeah, definitely. I just don't know where these senators are coming from. I mean, who's going to legislate them if we don't think they're being forthright enough? Because there's a lot of times that I feel that they're not being transparent enough, and that's all I wanted to ask. I mean, like you had a website, Bob's office, and you put stuff on there, and I don't see any of these senators doing that. I mean, they use Facebook here and there. I mean, Jim Moylan put some stuff. Senator Moylan put some stuff on Facebook, but nothing to the degree of having an actual website, and
Well,
and you were doing that that was like 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago.
It was that was.
They're still living in like the Stone Age,
Yeah,
unless they're just not being transparent.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Jesse. And it
anyways,
is.
I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay, Jesse. Thanks for calling.
Thanks.
Okay, we've got Shepard and our Carl. Our Carl must have been in quarantine yesterday. Okay, good afternoon, Shepard. Are you still ensconced in the Pacific Star?
Good afternoon, Bob. I am deeply ensconced at the Pac Star pen. I like I throw stones at the Pac Star. I'm having fun with them, but it really is. I wanted to say right off the bat, it's a nice place, and the people who work here are nice people, and it is what it is. It's just a difficult situation. Speaking of difficult situation, I've been busy in my room here today. I noticed on your lineup you had Commissar DeNorcy an issue. Have you already addressed that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, and it was something about her in the First Amendment. Less than a day after I got here, I wrote her a very nice letter, and it's been over a week, and I haven't heard back from her yet. So I guess I don't know what kind of free speech, or that's kind of she's into no speech, but that would be nice if she could respond. So here I am. I had a couple of things to note today about the Wuhan, and one of them is I've read that it's a very slippery virus. It's a very quickly mutating virus. The scientists are trying to keep track of a virus that adapts so fast that it can not affect people in grocery stores, home improvement stores, and the like. But it does a lot of damage in parks and beaches, churches, gun stores. So it's a pretty sly virus, and I hope the medical scientists get a hold on that soon. And the last thing to note is I read today that the WHO as well as the CDC are advising people, in addition to face masks, they should start wearing blindfolds when they go outside, so they don't see what's really going on.
Okay.
Capisci?
I do. Yeah.
All right.
Italiano.
Yeah. You have a nice day, Bob.
Thanks for calling, Shepard.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we got the seventh inning stretch coming up. Then we got our Carl after that, and Frenchie after our Carl.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
And here we are, seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field, Chicago. And we go straight from Wrigley Field, an empty Wrigley Field, no baseball players on the field, no fans in the stands. And we come right back here to the heroic studios of The Point. And I notice, I peeked at Facebook here, and I noticed that Denise Pangilinan has something of a rebuttal to what Jesse said. This is what Denise Pangilinan said. She, that means Lou Leon Guerrero. Now, I suppose I ought to correct that and make it read right. They, meaning Lou Leon Guerrero, right? They made her administration look shady from the very beginning. Then all the questions about the hotel contracts, staff staying on the 19th floor, forged signatures, censoring the media, now this ridiculous care spending plan. So, yeah, you can't blame the senators for wanting as much transparency as they can possibly grab a hold of. Yeah, that would be my sentiment too, Denise. Okay, let's see. I've got R. Carl and then Frenchie. Good afternoon, R. Carl.
Hey, good afternoon, Bob. You know, I have to say I really enjoy your lineup of your cast of characters in the Tall Tales Truth Posse.
Got quite a lineup.
I even enjoy Jesse's calls, even though I don't know to see eye to eye with Jesse. And I like Shepard. He's got that tongue-in-cheek humor thing going on, and he's made me laugh out loud at some of his comments. You know, and that's my benchmark for really good humor. So
we have a certain amount of toleration for tongue-in-cheek humor here on Tall Tales, R. Carl.
Yes, I noticed that. It's the home of tongue-in-cheek humor. And Bob, you're like an island institution. And I notice I didn't say you belong in an institution. I said you are an institution on the island.
Some would say that, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you really know Guam history. I'll bet if I asked you something about the landing of Magellan, you could give me a detailed description of everyone that was there and the whole 9 yards.
I couldn't tell you who was there, R. Carl. Sorry. That would be a personnel matter.
Oh, okay.
We can't talk about those, remember?
All right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But, yesterday I saw a post by one of my Facebook friends, and she was commenting about the former senator, the late Senator Jim Underwood. And I commented to my friend, I said, is it my imagination or did senators back then seem to have more depth and more, just more feistiness? They were willing to fight for their principles. And she commented and she went into some length about Senator Underwood because she had a good knowledge of him, and she confirmed my suspicions that senators back then, I'm talking about people like Senator Richard Titano and Senator Jim Underwood, Senator Al Israel, they just, in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they just seem to be willing to fight for what they believed in, and at the end of the day, they could go to eat dinner with their legislative foes, and they were friends, but on the floor, when it came down to it, if they really believed in something, they would, really duke it out verbally. And so the thought occurred to me, there's all this dispute about, full-time legislature, part-time legislature, we've actually had a part-time legislature at one time. So we don't have to speculate how much different it was or how different the results were. We can actually look back, and you can look back. I mean, you were actually on the scene and remember a lot of those characters that were there.
All the way back to the 7th Guam legislature, Carl.
Yeah, so maybe you can comment and tell me, first of all, am I hallucinating, or was there really seemed to be more in-depth and more character as far as being willing to fight for what they believed in? And if that's true, how much of that can be attributed to being in the, using a part-time model which tightly focused their attention, and how much of that was due to just the people they were that we happened to elect?
Yeah, I think you make some good points, Carl. But the other side of it is that I used to go down to my grandma's house when I was a kid, and the river that ran beside my grandma's house at that time looked to me like the Mississippi. And when I go back and visit that same river now, it's just a muddy little creek. So sometimes things the longer ago they occur, the better they seem to be in your mind's eye.
That's true, which is why I'm asking the question, and I think you'd have a better recollection. You actually knew a lot of them personally.
Yeah, we had some giants back in those days, that's true. But I think I made the observation yesterday that, when we were all excited about having 10 female senators this time and a female governor, what a wonderful, we couldn't stop talking about that for the first couple of months. But I think we can all conclude now that if you got 10 women in the legislature, they can screw it up just as bad as the men can. So we've got equality.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think there are women who have proven throughout history that women can do some great things. One of my favorites is Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she would not back down from any man. She would duke it out, and she would, tell them where to go if they thought that we're dealing with a woman. She can't do something. I mean, she was extremely strong woman. So it is possible to have strong women leaders, and there have been strong women leaders down through history, but they do have to perform, and I don't think that's a matter of gender at all. Anyway, Bob, I just thought I'd toss that out there as a thought that occurred to me. We did have a part-time legislature, and we had, coincidentally, seemingly, we just happened to have very strong leaders at the time, and I was wondering how much of that was attributable to the part-time model, which forced them to focus on what was critical and not wander off and chase every bright, shiny object that happened to roll in front of their view.
Okay, an interesting question, Carl. Thanks for raising it. We'll talk to you.
All right, Bob. Thank you for allowing me to toss it into the mix. I appreciate it.
All righty. Oh, geez, I hung up on Frenchie accidentally. Frenchie, can you call back? My mistake. Yeah, I had Frenchie on the line, and I was my own button man here. I guess my inner...
You muted Frenchie.
Yeah, my inner Janella came to the surface. That
There he
must
is.
be him, huh? Sorry, Frenchie.
Yeah, no problem. I was disconnected.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I thought maybe it was Janela. Oh, yeah, I better put my countermeasures on.
All right.
She's trying to mute me. Anyhow, and then we have some trolls online. That's kind of interesting. It's always the same trolls from Canada and Pennsylvania. But anyhow, a few comments on the call from Dr. Akimoto regarding the negotiation or kind of the information meeting that they had with the Taiwanese. I think it's interesting, but even though we have a lot of things in common as far as islands and isolation and other things like this, I think the Taiwanese are a little better prepared than we are with the pandemic. Number one, they have a good information service regarding China. They warned us back in the middle of December, and then again they reaffirmed it in early January. Then there was problem in China, and then the WHO, of course, didn't pick up on it or failed to acknowledge it. But they like Dr. Akimoto said, they didn't close. They stay open. They took some preventive measure. One of them was to not allow anybody flying from Wuhan, and then again after that from all of China, which is very difficult for the Taiwanese when you consider they almost have 1 million citizens that go back and forth between Taiwan and China. So it's a large number of people there. So, but they took those initiatives. As far as Amanda in the Senate, you know, a lot of people forget that she's very close to the NEOs, and the NEOs are essential part of the governor's team at Adelup, and those are the same people that used to pull the strings of Aperon when he was in power here. And it's interesting, actually, that that speech, I say, well, that speech sounds eerily familiar. And when I looked at it, I went back to the Jungle Watch, and you have a intervention by our old friend Pius from Malta, who was telling us that we have to trust the Archbishop and we have to trust the governor. So it's very interesting, the similarities. I guess if it's a good scenario, you can use it several times. You just need to change the name. But I think this whole story from the get-go, you called it when she decided to not abide by the transparency laws and decided not to follow common sense and a lot of advisors from the outside. I think you need to connect the dots, follow the money, and JC will have his answers, because it's all tied up. You know, it's all tied up. I've mentioned it before, you know, when the governor is already controlling all the payroll from Adelup and GovGuam employees, that's a huge amount of money. And then the pension funds, and then now all the federal funds that are coming in. Nothing happens in a vacuum. It's all tied up, and it's very sad to see. And unfortunately, the people, again, that are going to get the short end of the stick are going to be the people that have been laid off and that don't have work right now.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Frenchie. She has not covered herself with glory since this Wuhan virus hit the island.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Ray this morning on his show mentioned that, you know, he had a tough time thinking this was kind of a non-planned event. That basically, Adelup said, okay, you vote again, you go against me on the bill, but that will give you cover with the electors in the primary, and then but make sure we don't continue doing hearings, because I think Jim Moylan yesterday when he called you alluded to that, you know, that he was happy that something happened, but at the same time, you know, the Senate is not in session anymore. They just went in session to override the bill, and it was very much a theater grandstanding on the part of a lot of people. And even though it appears like Munya Barnes might disagree with the governor, and they might on some things. I think they are still on the same team, and they are manipulating. It is a little bit like their excuses, like everybody does it, everybody makes mistakes, which is not an excuse, especially when it was deliberate. So, let's not forget who Janela was, who the other people like Marshall So and what's her name, also that used to be at KUAM, they all got their job because they had hit piece when they were working in the local media against the opposition of the governor, of who is now the governor, who was then candidate. And they were rewarded with good salaries and position for at least 4 years, where they're going to come out smelling like roses, unless the government throw them under the bus like she does with a lot of people. But I think Ray had his finger on something this morning when he mentioned that, and it's an eerie feeling to see what's happening.
Yeah, Ray used the phrase kabuki theater to describe the relationship between the governor and the legislature.
Yeah, which is a very good comparison. Good comparison. Especially in kabuki, you have men playing the role of women. So here we have women playing the role of men, and it's very confusing to a lot of people.
Yeah, we just have to keep watching them, right, Francie?
Them, exactly. Yeah. Which you have failed to do several times. You must be tired this week. You've been saying he or she instead of them.
I know. I got to go home and wash my mouth out with soap.
Yeah, and then tell the real Joe Cruz to be more on target to catch you when you make that jump.
He's usually pretty good at catching me when I make a mistake.
Yeah, I think he's distracted today.
No, I'm not.
He's not.
That's like trying to correct a fire-breathing dragon.
You just need not to be
I only have one thing to say to that, Frenchie.
Yeah.
Off with his head.
Well, thank you, like they say in Pepe Le Pew, Robespierre.
Okay, thank you very much, Frenchie.
You guys have a very nice evening. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Okay, so I think I've said enough about Senator Amanda Shelton and her not going along with the veto on Bill 333. Moving on to the next item on the card, which is the 19th floor versus the procurement law. So there's a whole new dimension to the 19th floor. Now, I wonder, Real Joe Cruz, do we need to call the Guam police and report that Alice Tyrone and Rebecca Respicio may very well have disappeared?
I don't think so. I don't think that's our responsibility, sir.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Okay, so there's a story in yesterday's Pacific News Center. Governor Lulian Guerrero has submitted her plan for spending $117 million in direct coronavirus aid. The proposed spending plan was submitted to lawmakers for their information and comment. Because there are federal funds, the governor has authority to determine how they should be spent. Legislative approval is not required. And that is exactly correct, that when it's federal funds, when there are no restrictions in the federal funds that refer to local law, and no local appropriation is necessary to implement the program, then the legislature cannot appropriate that money. So this all comes into play when we're talking about the 19th floor, even though we're not sure of its existence anymore. Because just to kind of bring you up to date, you recall that the 19th floor is costing us, it's cost us over, how much was it, $600,000, something like that, a fantastic amount of money. That we're paying $100 a night for every room on the 19th floor. that the presidential suite is on the 19th floor, and that the 19th floor is supposed to be to quarantine people who, not people who are test positive for the virus, but the people who may have been exposed to it off island. So if they come to island, they're supposed to go straight to the 19th floor. Let me take a short break here for the home stretch, and we'll come back to the 19th floor.
One of the easiest ways to prevent the spread of COVID-19 is to wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Let this message help you time it. Start soaping up now. The virus can survive in the air for 3 hours, on copper for 4 hours, on cardboard for 24 hours, and on plastic and stainless steel for 72 hours. Disinfect phones and common household surfaces like tables, doorknobs, light switches, countertops, toilets, faucets, and sinks, desks, including computer keyboards and kids' toys. Choice Broadcasting reminds you to stay safe and stay clean. You can rinse now.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his Smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his Smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. No race today, nobody in the stands. Churchill Downs is deserted. There isn't even much going on in Louisville. So because Louisville is a dead town, we're back here at Tall Tales for the home stretch. It means I got about 8 minutes to wrap up the program here. Another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales. And I'm concentrating once again on the 19th floor. And so many bizarre things have happened with respect to the 19th floor that the promos for that new TV show, if they're guilty of anything, are guilty of understatement, because the actual facts of what's going on there is even more fantastic than the promo for the TV show. So you've got a situation where the government is paying $100 a night for these hotels. Well, how did the government procure these hotels? How did that work? Well, the governor's son-in-law, who's also her legal advisor, went out and talked to the people that owned the hotels and arranged for the $100 a night and arranged for the payments for the hotel lease payments, not lease payments, the payments for the rooms to be made every 2 weeks, because the hotel where the 19th floor is located said, we got some cash flow problems, so can you pay us right away? And the government's been doing that. Now, in order for the government to do anything, there are papers, there are signatures, there are certifications. Not this time. Would you like to know what the written contract, the lease contract for the 19th floor, would you like to know some of the language in that written contract? Would you like to know, Real Joe Cruz?
What's that, sir?
Would you like to know about some of the contractual language and the written lease contract for the 19th floor? Well, sure. So would I, because there is no written contract. But the governor said she had signed the contract. And when pressed on it, she said, a reporter said, "Governor, you told us that there was a contract." And she said, well, there is a contract. It's just that the paperwork hasn't caught up with it yet. A good answer. Now, put on your law and order hats here for just a few minutes at the end of the program. Law and order hats, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah. So put on your law and order hats. Their contracts don't have to be in writing. If I tell the Real Joe Cruz, if you come to my house and mow my lawn tomorrow, I will wash your car the day after tomorrow. Yeah, and he agreed. We both agreed. We have a contract. It's not in writing, but it is a contract. In the business setting, not very often do you find now people use this term, verbal contracts. Not a very good term, because verbal means words. Well, all contracts are verbal contracts. Even those that appear on paper are verbal contracts. Even those that are digital are verbal contracts. So what we're talking about here is oral contracts. Very seldom do you find big money deals in the business setting that are cast on oral contracts, in writing, reviewed by counsel, or maybe more than one lawyer, reviewed by counsel on both sides of the contract, executed with the proper formalities, and put in a safe place, and performance monitored on a daily basis to make sure that the other side is complying with the terms of the contract. Not this time around. All we have are an oral contract, but the papers are going to catch up with it. Now, the papers don't have the appropriate signatures on them yet. If you followed the news, they don't have, the folks over there at Homeland Security have not signed. And in addition to that, one of the important signatures is that of Commissar Linda DeNorsi. Linda DeNorsi says that when confronted with her signature on some of the underlying papers, said, "I don't remember signing that paper." Well, it turns out that Linda DeNorsi has an electronic signature. And it also turns out that about 2 weeks after the electronic signature that I just mentioned surfaced, an agreement was made involving Sophia Diaz, one of the lawyers for Adelup, that Linda's electronic signature could be used on these papers. But at the time that it was used in these critical papers, Linda said, "I don't remember ever seeing that paper, much less affixing my electronic signature to it." Now, I went through this yesterday and went through the statute on forgery, and what Linda said is a classic case of forgery. And if what Linda says is true, and if we have no reason to think that she would lie at that stage of the game, then we would hope that she'd go to the police or the attorney general and say, "Hey, look, forgery." And of course, because they're official government papers, it's even more than forgery. Well, the mystery was solved yesterday when the governor said, "I think Linda could be correct when she said that she didn't remember that paper." That could very well be. Because, you know, Linda is the Director of Public Health and Social Services, and she's very, very busy, and she might not remember that paper. Wuhan virus, I got to wash my hands. I'm just going to wash my hands of this whole electronic signature thing, because I think it's probably okay. And the fact that Hai Hun, my son-in-law, the lawyer for the governor, was out procuring these contracts instead of going through the regular procurement channels, that's okay. Now, of course, Hai said that the governor had told him to do it. So I'm going to get farther into this tomorrow, but as I said earlier, the promo for the 19th floor isn't as bizarre as what actually happened with respect to the 19th floor. So we'll see you tomorrow.